Hi, I'm Rick. Our friendship with God is not quite like the friendships we have with other people. I've got some friends that I can stay friends with, not talk to them for a year, then after a year we'll reconnect over coffee or a phone call or something, and it's like the friendship just has carried on. We haven't really missed too much. I mean, we've missed life events, but we haven't grown apart. Those are good friendships. A couple of them, those that I have. Our relationship with God is not like that. If you and I don't connect with God and do a couple of other things on the regular basis, what's going to happen is you and I are going to feel like we're disconnected from God. And if you're in a funk or you feel disconnected from God, then that's what this video is for. We're doing an inductive study on Galatians chapter 5, verses 13 to 26. And here's the summary of that study. If you want to feel truly connected with God, you need to begin every day like this. So if you're in a funk, if you feel disconnected, try to begin every day like this. First of all, in Galatians 5, 13 to 26, we learn that we need to choose friendship with God. If your Christianity, if your connection with God, if your relationship with God is just based on a one-time prayer that you did maybe 10, 20, 30 years ago, and so, or maybe even a year ago, and say, Jesus, I'm sorry, please forgive me, teach me to live as your friend, then you're not connecting with him again on the regular basis. Then what's happening is you're not growing closer into friendship with God, you're actually moving away. The text says it's for freedom that we've been set free. So choose to live in that freedom. You were called to freedom. Actually, in verse 13, you're called to freedom. It's a calling. We're called into a relationship with God. And when we're called into a relationship with God, it means we're not called into rules. We're not called into living a good life. We're not called into being all that we can be. We're called into a friendship with God. And our life now, after we've placed our faith in Jesus, is about growing into that friendship. There's some things we can do to grow the friendship, and there's some things we can do to diminish the friendship and end the friendship. If you feel disconnected from God, you need to remember this is a friendship that we have. It's not a religion, it's a friendship, and we need to be continually doing stuff to grow that friendship. So every single day, begin with this mindset, I need to be growing the friendship with God. Also, secondly, choose friendship with others. In Galatians, Paul writes, love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus says there's two commandments here that summarizes all the law. Love God first, love your neighbor as yourself. And Paul reminds us, you got to love your neighbor as yourself. And he says throughout Galatians 5, 13, 26, that if we don't serve one another in love, if instead we're sort of biting each other and we're aggressive towards each other, acting unlovingly toward each other, what's going to happen is those people around us, those Christians around us, are going to push us away from God. We will push each other away from God if we don't work on the friendships with the people around us. There's only so far I can grow in my relationship with God without you, without other believers. You and I need our siblings. You and I need the other children of God to encourage us and to help us grow in the friendship. If we're not growing in friendship with other people, we're not going to be able to grow in our friendship with God, which includes going to church, Now, there are some people who would feel that, okay, maybe I'll go to church once this month, maybe I'll go to church twice this month, maybe you start going to church for a long time and then you withdraw and you start feeling, I feel disconnected from God. I know I'm not going to church, but it's just about me and God anyways. That's just not true. If you're withdrawing from church, not if you have to work. If you got to work, you got to work. I get that. But if you're withdrawing from church for no good reason and you're not connecting with believers because you're not intentional about that, what's going to happen is you're going to feel disconnected from God, because we have to love our neighbor as ourselves. If we're not connecting with other believers, we're not going to be feeling connected with God. If you truly want to feel connected with God, you got to begin every day like this. You got to choose friendship with God, and you have to choose friendship with others. There's a little warning right here as well. Thirdly, through the text, we learn that we can't reject the friendship. We're called to be free. We're not called to serve a lot of rules. We're not obligated to underneath the Ten Commandments. We're called to a friendship, a relationship with God. And in that friendship and relationship with the lack of rules, we shouldn't be using our freedom to choose anything else other than growing in our friendship with God. The text uses, it talks about the acts of the sinful nature. And as it talks about the acts of the sinful nature, it says, well, you know what? The sinful nature stuff is obvious. Witchcraft, sexual immorality, jealousy, envy, all that stuff is obvious. Why? Because it's hurting our relationship with Jesus. All the stuff that we do that hurts our relationship with Jesus is us rejecting the friendship with Jesus. And if you go through chapter 5, verses 13 and 26, and you look at the acts of the sinful nature, we see that jealousy and witchcraft and sexual morality, it's all clumped in together, and envy, it's all clumped in together. And sometimes we think to ourselves, okay, bad stuff is bad stuff, but then there's evil stuff as well, and downright wicked stuff. Maybe jealousy is kind of bad, and envy is kind of bad. Witchcraft is really bad, and other stuff wicked. That's not how God sees it, at least not according to this text. Anything that pulls us away from a relationship with God is something we need to avoid. There's no scale here. We're either moving closer to God or we're moving farther away from God. And so the text is pleading with us, please. Don't do the things that would draw us away from God. Instead, do things that would enhance our relationship with God. If you want to truly feel connected with God, begin every day like this. Remember that you're choosing friendship moment by moment, every single day. And not just with God, you're choosing friendship with God, and you're also choosing friendship with others, your siblings in Christ, every day. Because you can't grow in God if you're also not growing in your relationship with the other believers around you. God bless you. See you next time.